to learn how to connect to SQL database and execute SQL statements on Power Automate for desktop? I'm Marcelo, and on this tutorial we will learn how to do it step by step. So first, as a requirement, you need a running MySQL instance. So in my case, I have locally on Laragon, so you can have on Champ or WAMP or something like that. So you just need a MySQL instance running so you can test the connection to the database and also execute some SQL statements from Power Automate for desktop. Then we need to install MySQL ODBC driver. So I'll leave on the description of this tutorial the link to this page. So make sure you download the one from 64 bits. So this one, I will download it. And now let's click here, no thanks, just start my download. Download already done. Let's execute the installer. Let's click on next, accept the terms, next, next, and now let's click on install. And now let's click on finish. Then, after the installation, let's search on the Windows Explorer for data sources. And let's execute the one from 64 bits. Then we need to add a new file DCN. So let's click here on Net. And here let's select the option MySQL ODBC Unicode driver. Now here we need to indicate the path and the file name for the file data source. So let's click here on browse. And here, for example, I will input localhost and click on save. Click on next, finish. And now here first we must provide IP server. So in my case it's localhost. So it's the 127.0.0.1. The port it's this one also. The user it's the default one for local installation, so it's root and without password. So now let's click here on test. We can see the connection was successful. So here on database we can select the database. So I created one just for this tutorial with the name Power Automate, so you just have to select yours. And now let's click here on OK. So it's created our file. So now we can close this application. And now let's access again to Power Automate Desktop. And now here on the search, let's search for SQL. And here we can see three actions: the open SQL connection, execute SQL statement, and close SQL connection. So the execute one already does also the connection to a database, but let's use first the open SQL connection that will create then a connection variable that we will provide to the execute SQL statement, so it will be more simple. So let's drag this one to our flow. And now let's create our connection string. So let's click here on this button where we can build easily the connection string. And now here let's select the provider for ODBC drivers. So let's select this one and click on next. And now here let's select the option use connection string and let's click here on will. And now let's create here our data source file that we have created. So let's select it and click on OK. Let's click on OK again. So let's click on OK again. And here we have the connection string that will be stored on this variable. So let's save. And now let's track the execute SQL statement. And so first we must indicate SQL connection. So in this case, it's being already indicated the variable that was created on this first action. So now let's execute SQL statement. For example, a select. So I'll open here ADSQL application. It's a nice tool for DB MySQL ODBC administration. So here we can see the database that I have created, the Power Automate, that has one table only, users, and so has some users, some rows. So let's try to fetch all users using a select statement. So here on execute SQL statement, let's enter select from, and now let's indicate the table name. In this case, it's users. So we can see here that we will be create a variable with the query result. So let's save. And now let's run our flow to see if we got some output from this statement. So let's click on run. And now we can see on the right side on the flow variable section that we have the query result variable that it's so a data table with some information. So let's do a double click, and here we can see that we got all the information that we have on our table. So now to finish, let's just drag the close SQL connection, and so here we already indicated the connection. So let's click on save, and so let's run again. And so our automation executed as expected. So if you liked this video, please give a thumbs up and also consider to subscribe to the channel and enable the notifications bell so you'll get notified on each tutorial that I launch on the channel.